Hello again. I'm still Ben. Back to the hatch to see what our topic is today. Whoa, almost two topics. I would switch it up. That could be a bigger, longer video. Term limits and age limits. Term limits and age limits. I think I may have talked about this before in some other videos. A lot of these all overlap. And I think one of the last videos I'll have to do is more of a philosophy about explaining how all of these things have to work together, because they all have the same sort of underlying humanitarian person-focused needs. So we can't just kind of solve one problem at a time. You know, that's why everything isn't working, I think, but that's the other video. I won't talk about that here. This is term limits and age limits. So one of the ways we eliminate the kind of corruption we see right now is by instituting term limits and term age limits per person for elected office, right? I think I talked about this somewhere else, because so many of our politicians have been doing this their entire adult lives, and you know they've never had a real job. Practically, they've never had any sort of other responsibility except trying to continue to be elected over and over again and aligning all the chess pieces in their favor so that keeps happening kind of regardless of how much people don't like them, right? That's one of the problems. That's why buying politicians from a corporate standpoint is a great investment. You know, you can invest a few $1 million here and there, and you could have, 30, 40 years of somebody voting for your company's interests, upsetting our democracy. So when we talk about term limits, I think it needs to be in every elected position everywhere, needs to have its own set of term limits, and we can argue about what those should be. But with presidential term limits being 8 years, I feel like term limits is a pretty solid choice pretty much anywhere. You can do something once, and if people like you enough, they'll vote for you a second time, and you can do it a second time, and then that's it. Public service is supposed to be a thing you step away from your career to participate in, and then you go back to whatever your career was. It's not supposed to be a career in and of itself. That is one of the core problems here, is that we have this class of citizen that have become professional politicians. This is the thing that's stopping our democracy from moving forward. Okay, this is the thing that's stopping any real progress from taking hold and continuing and then building on that and building on that. So I think 2 term limits is pretty solid. But in order to get around people doing a lifetime of service anyway, just moving from position to position, that's what I mean by term age limits. You've got to have your own personal limit on how many years you can serve as an elected official, no matter where it is, whether it's school board, or whether it's county commissioner, or whether it's a senator, or a mayor, or a governor, or, because if you played your cards right, you could work your way up to all of those things and still be an elected official for your entire career. And that's the problem. We don't want to have that. So when it comes to your personal age limits of how long you are allowed to serve before you're no longer eligible for elected office, I think 12 years is pretty good. That's 2 Senate terms, which is why we had to bump it up to 12. I don't even necessarily think 12 is great. I think it should probably be 10, really, but we'd have to change what a senator's term is then if we wanted to change that overall number. So bumping it up to 12 in order to account for 2 senatorial terms, I think that should be every individual's lifetime term limit for elected position. If you have been an elected official for 12 years of your life, that's as much as you can do. You can't be elected for anything else anymore. Go do something else. We're supposed to cycle through these things. It's supposed to be people and generations coming up and cycling. But instead, what do we see happens when we don't allow that cycle? We've got exceptionally old representatives who don't know the technology, don't know the times, and don't know that they're obsolete. This is a big problem. By making it that same cycle, by keeping it going, you're going to have a more normal distribution. Do you remember I talked about a normal distribution in another video? Go watch that one if you didn't see it. And that normal distribution is going to be mostly middle-aged people. And that's frankly the people who should be in charge. Okay? There should be a few on one side and a few on the other side for extra representation. But let me tell you a little personal allegory about being in your 40s. You still remember being a kid, and you still remember what you were like as a teen, and you're also looking forward to how to plan for the end of your life at the same time. We're the only group of people that have the appropriate perspective and scope to do something like leadership on a large scale, okay? Because we're thinking about everybody. You know, it's like I can see the past, I can look towards the future at the same time. Why do we have people who are in their 70s and 80s and maybe even 90s in elected office? They're not going to be around long enough to make good decisions or for it to affect them at all. This is deeply inappropriate. So I want term limits for each individual term, and I want lifetime limits for each individual person. That's what I would institute, and that, I think truly that alone, if I get nothing else done, if nothing else worked, if all of the other policies fall apart or the country hates them or whatever, if we get just this done, we will start to see changes in a real way, because it also really takes out the value of buying politicians when you know you're only going to get so many years of work out of them. So now the corporate money is not as much of a problem either, because it's just not worth the investment. So this is the thing I really want us to focus on, kind of on a larger scale. If we accomplish this, if we demand this as a people, then we're going to be making headway. My name's Ben Howison. Sursum Corda.